All right. So, welcome everybody to the weekly Probate Mastery Group coaching call. I'm back. Sorry I missed last week. The wheels kind of came off. Literally, I lost a wheel in 6 lanes of Seattle traffic and was at a bit of a crisis. And my solar system decided it had a loose ground and would burn a piece of 4-gauge wire. So I learned that wheels miraculously fly off. So you find when you're about ready to burn your coach to the ground. So, Kat, thank you for standing in. I did listen to your all's call. Kat is definitely the resident expert in everything social media and much better at it than I am. I'm not an old guy yet, but I think I'm getting there because I'm like, Instagram, who has time? Kat's awesome with that. So you guys leverage her. She's a valuable part of the community, and thanks for standing in. The other thing that I thought about this week, let's start with getting to your max allowable offer or a wholesale offer. And David, now I'm happy to see you here, brother. I think you might jump in on this too. And it's I'll kind of show you the way I learned, the way most everyone else does it, and then the way that I started doing it. And I prefer what I call the back of the napkin method, especially in this environment with fluctuating construction prices. Like if you're wholesaling or if you're flipping, to really nail that, you have to have a pretty deep understanding. If you're going to use the traditional model, you have to have a pretty deep understanding of construction costs. And that's one of the hardest things to learn, especially in a dynamic environment where lumber is swinging 300 to 400%. And you've got manufactured woods that have dropped down and come back to a realistic market price where lumber still hasn't, like finished lumber still hasn't. So I thought we would start there. I'll share my screen. So the gray box is just definition. So for anyone who might be new to this conversation, when we talk about ARV, we're talking about after repair value. Most beautiful condition, sitting on MLS, looking for a retail end buyer. That's our ARV. As is, and this is a personal definition for me, but an as is value to me is if I put this home on MLS right now, what is a price where I can all but guarantee I have a ratified contract with no contingencies in 7 days and a closing inside of 30 days? Basically a wholesale, right? We can put it on MLS, get a buzz from cash buyers. And in this environment, with such an inventory shortage, that price is higher than ever. Repairs, like estimating repairs, it's simply just the total gross amount of money that needs to go into the property in order to get that top ARV or retail value. Profit is what you want to make on the deal. So some people are willing to tolerate $5,000 a deal and will flip it really razor thin margins. There's a reason iBuyers came out of the gate in a downward price race. Their models are built on razor thin margins. So if you want to chase your tail, go do deals for $5,000. But I would recommend you move up the scale. It didn't make sense for me to do a deal if I couldn't make 18%. Now, if you're wholesaling and you're not risking capital, if you know your marketing expenses, you should be able to determine a palatable ROI. Because if you're going to sign the contract, you have no real basis in the investment anyways. Your investment is your marketing and payroll. So look at that and say, okay, what is my basis per deal? How much money do I spend per deal to get these deals, and how much do I need to make in return? So rather than having a cost basis in an asset, like in the asset itself, if you're wholesaling, your cost basis is really going into what it takes to run the marketing machine. So if you're spending $5,000 in marketing and payroll to get each deal, you damn well better be making more than $5,000. And if you're a long-term buy and hold, this number could be zero. You don't have to add in additional profit, because you're going to be looking at EBITDA and your internal rate of return over time. So your particular tax situation comes into your return and your profitability, your particular construction cost and your management, the way you manage, what your management agreement is if you self-manage. So this is more for the fix and flip, long-term buy and hold, or just straight up wholesale, straight up wholesale, but not as much for the long-term buy and hold. You're going to look at return a little differently if you're a portfolio holder. And then your MAO is your max allowable offer. So I put these definitions here because this is what's been taught for 40 some years, if you've ever followed any of your old school investment coaches. So your traditional formula is your ARV or retail price times 70% minus repairs minus profit equals your max allowable offer. Where I see almost every person that's new to investing get hung up, and where I got hung up, and the first thing I did when I started wholesaling is I went to a home show, I met a contractor, I met a realtor, and I walked through, I picked 3 houses, and I said, I'm not going to buy these houses, but we're going to go through these houses. I'm going to give you a scope of work. You're going to give me a line item quote directly from QuickBooks with your price per unit. And then I'm going to come up with the offer that I would give, and then I'll track this house all the way through and see if I can do this. It took me about 2 weeks to do all that. And what ended up happening is I laid down an internal knowledge of construction costs in Roanoke, Virginia, because I was coming from Kaanapali, Maui, and our costs were exorbitantly higher than what they were in a small town in Virginia. So it took me a couple of weeks and a hell of a lot of effort to really kind of get to where I trusted my own damn offer. And I see a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people have to go back and renegotiate price, and a lot they leave money on the table. And so if you don't have a good handle on construction cost, it's easier for me to teach you a different formula than it is. But recently, the insurance industry has started to sell data. Normally, they aggregate that share between insurance companies. So if a hurricane blows through Florida, they all have a central database where they know they're not getting ripped off. That will actually allow you to plug in, I need a full bathroom remodel, a full kitchen remodel, a driveway reseal, and a roof replacement in zip code 24019. And it will actually go out and look over the last month of actual invoices paid to bring back those true costs. There are tools out there, but at the end of the day, if you're risking real capital, do you really trust that? Like, data is garbage in, garbage out. It's better if you actually know your local rip cost. So rather than going out, building a relationship with a contractor, trying to get all of his pricing out of his QuickBooks and line item quotes, and studying these and staying up till 4 a.m. and spending weeks getting to where you trust your own offers like I did, you can just use a simpler formula. So this formula was actually taught to me by a gentleman who owns one of the largest real estate investor direct mail companies in the country. And it was when I had these spreadsheets, like I was analyzing every number, trying to trust my own offers, right? He's like, dude, you just, like, I've been using this one for 20 years. I made it up. And it's simply the as is value. So what if we put this house on MLS today? How quickly, what can we guarantee? We get a contingent free contract in 7 days, close in 30. That price times 75% minus whatever profit, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, is your max allowable offer. Now, I took some simple points, and this is from a real deal that I actually underwrote this way. I had an ARV of 150. I had a wholesaler. I could buy it at 80,000. The market would support 80,000 if he would have thrown it on MLS. Needed about 45,000 repairs. I wanted to make about 10 grand. And you see, I don't know, this probably doesn't translate too well in a live Zoom, but you can see the formula that I used here matches the formulas that I have up above. And we'll try to pull this into a PDF that you can download in the show notes here, something that's a little more usable and understandable. So anyway, we've had questions about this, and I wanted to start the conversation by first showing you there's two ways, in my opinion. You've got the traditional way, which requires you to have a much higher skill set and leaves a lot more room for you to make mistakes if you underestimate repairs. And then you've got basically, here's what I know the market would pay for it. I'm going to discount that by 25%. I'm going to discount that by the money I want to make, and that's what they offer. And what I found is when I would make my big complicated spreadsheet and have every single variable in there, and then I would throw this simple offer up beside of it, I would usually land within 1 to 2% on my offer price. So that's when I started doing the back of the napkin methodology. And I have similar methodology like for full-blown apartment building. We can go walk a 110 unit apartment building and make a confident offer and on the spot, because we have more back of the napkin tactics. So there's a lot of stuff out here about this, but it really doesn't have to be as complicated, I think, as a lot of people perceive it, or some other, professionals or gurus might make it. So I'm going to stop the screen share. We'll go back. We have a conversation about it. I want to know and hear how you value your offers, and if you agree with what I said or disagree with any of it. And for those of you that don't know David, if you're just getting introduced, David is a broker as well as an investor, doing about 60% of his deals as an investor now, because he found out he could do the same amount of work, or a lot less work, and make a heck of a lot more net profit.
Yeah, I mean, it takes that experience of knowing what to look for in a house, and sometimes I get it spot on, sometimes I'm a little bit off, like you said, and sometimes I'm a lot off, but especially this one I'm working on now. But they all seem to, I don't really go by a calculation anymore of looking at it. I just assume it needs $35,000 worth of repairs now. if it's cosmetic and there's a few things I'm looking for, big items, your AC unit, foundation, electrical, plumbing is one. You know, AC is somewhere between 3,500 to 6,500. Electrical is like $3 to $3.50 a foot. So that gives me about $20,000 worth of major items and $15,000 of cosmetic stuff for painting, fixtures, little stuff, but it all adjusts. But I get pretty darn close on a $35,000 offer unless the house is just really bad shape.
Like I started out getting like exact. I wanted to have line item, everything. Like here's what I think it will cost. Before I switched to the back of the napkin methodology, the next step to make it a little easier on myself is I took 3 or 4 or 5 deals that I had underwritten and worked with contractors and gotten actual quotes. And then I figured out I had basically 3 classes of rehab. I had a buy and hold level of rehab, which is, it's basically in stock, builder grade, everything from Lowe's. Then there was a middle market retail rehab. And then there was a high-end retail rehab. Actually, in the middle market, that's where I did pretty much all my deals. So I had basically your cosmetic rehab price and then a full, like a heavy construction price. And what I got down to is basically you could take the footprint of the house, and for a cosmetic rehab, for paint, carpet, new doors on the cabinets, reusing the boxes, popping the countertops off, putting back new countertops, refinishing hardwood floors, just refreshing the house. Cosmetic rehab, all new switch plates, all new doorknobs, just cosmetic things. I could get pretty damn close with a conservative estimate at $15 a square foot. But where that breaks down as a national speaker here is your market's going to be way different than mine. And it's hard for me to teach that rule of thumb, but I had in my market, when I built the detailed construction knowledge, I knew that I could do a cosmetic rehab for $15 a square and a middle market flip. And I knew that if I had to do mechanicals, roof, furnace, roof, HVAC, electrical, foundation's a complete outlier. I spent $135,000 on one single foundation. If you're getting it done as warranted work, it can vary from, I've never seen one less than $15,000 with a warranty. And I've had them up into the 6 digits. There's a cool case study on that from Ramjack that I did the case study for Ramjack. But so you can sometimes work it into a rule of thumb like that, like $15 a square foot for cosmetic, $30 a square foot for heavy construction. And that worked pretty well for me. But with fluctuating construction costs, that makes me hesitant to tell you guys to go use rules of thumb, because then you're like, he said $30 a square foot. I'm 50 grand under, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I like the back of the napkin. Let the market speak. The market will tell you your as is value, discount that by 25%, and then discount that by your profit and your margins in there. Or your price includes construction and your margin.
And just to take one of those big items like foundation, you could call a couple of guys we have one guy that will do piers for $150 a hole. So what I mean by hole, they dig. The most expensive thing on foundation work is digging the hole, not putting the piers in. So it's $150 for us here, and every 4 feet that we need a pier. So if I know a house looks to be, I'm just guessing when I'm in a house, but it feels like it's sloping down in a certain area of the house, in the corner of it, I know that it's probably sloping down 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. You can tell if it's 3 or 4, and that's bad because you'll see cracking everywhere on that exterior wall. But if it's 1 inch or 1.5 inches, you need piers every 4 feet. So you walk the outside of the exterior of the house, you got 20 feet, you need 4 piers. Add 1, so you have about $1,500 in foundation work. I've done a house and it's 81 piers. I've had a big boy like you. We did the whole exterior of a house, and that was $55,000 in foundation work.
Did that include a lifetime transferable warranty?
That one did.
I have a guy that's really good. I mean, he's done foundation work for years, but he won't warranty anything. But I can bring him in at 1/10 of the price of Ramjack. But with the Ramjack, we're using 100-year epoxy coated helical piers that are driven down to, I forget the refusal point, 15,000 PSI, I think, or foot-pounds. And then they're offering a lifetime transferable warranty for whoever, no matter how many times it sells. So anyways, but that's a good example of an outlier. There's overlooking things, and then there's just not understanding how much things cost.
Right.
But either way, I like the back of the napkin formula because you're less likely to make mistakes and have to go back to renegotiate a deal with egg on your face.
It's really asking those contractors how they price things, and eventually you learn what to look out for, and you don't need them there. especially a middle to ground person, not a really high professional or somebody that just watched a video on YouTube and decided want to be a contractor. So,
Yep. Malcolm, I see you have your hand up, brother.
Oh, finally. All right. Let me see. I had a couple questions. So the first one I had, I'm seeing a lot with some of these fresher cases where the docket says that there's an application to relieve the estate from administration. And I wasn't really clear on what that was, so I figured I would ask you.
What state are you in?
Ohio.
It sounds like maybe probate wasn't necessary, so they're rolling it back because they were exempt.
Okay. And then the second question was, it's in regards to the services, right? So, basically we're telling people that, we have these free services that we offer, which to a large degree is true. The question is that, okay, let's say that the property needs landscaping because they're in an area where if the grass gets too tall, they're going to get a cold back, right? So by us telling them, that we have these services that we offer, who's going to pay for the landscaper to come out there and trim that grass? Is it going to come out of the cost? Like, is it going to be rolled into the holding costs of the PR, or exactly where is that bill?
Well, it depends on where they are in the process. If they, and typically when we make contact, the death occurred a couple of months ago. That's just typical behavior. Is they'll file probate usually 60, 70 days from the date of death. There's obviously outliers on both sides of that. Some people wait 10 years and some go the next day. But for the most part, what I've observed is it takes people a couple of months to kind of process this to the point where they go to the courthouse and figure out what the probate process is and what they're going to need to do. In that time period, usually the probate clerk will give them enough information that they can go to the bank and actually use the documents they get. If it's a simple estate, they can just have an affidavit of heirship, or they can have letters testamentary. But if they already have control of the bank account, then ideally your vendors get paid directly from the estate.
Okay.
If they're very early in the process and it's a very urgent situation, then you can have the personal representative pay for it out of pocket, and then they can be reimbursed by invoicing the estate, and they'll be reimbursed in the final accounting. Now, if there's no money in the estate's bank account and the PR has no money, which you will find these situations, this is where having real vendor relationships comes in, because as crazy as it might sound, you can turn a lawnmower into a bank. If you take a guy and say, listen, I need you to do this job and I need you to keep this thing cut, keep an invoice, submit it here to this address, have him invoice the court, have him invoice the PR, and have him carry a 10% premium on the invoice. So there's an incentive for him to dip into this. But we can turn our contractors, our landscape companies, anyone, we can have them earn a fair interest rate for carrying the invoice for 90 days until there is cash that you generate through liquidating personal property or real property or otherwise. So that's kind of the three ways that you get things paid for. There are very rare occasions where I have actually come out of pocket and covered costs. It's usually when I know there's tons of equity in the estate. There's more asset than there is liability. And usually it's with really elderly people that very, very deeply trust me, but they don't trust the vendors because they trust me so much, if that makes sense. I've had some folks that are in their 80s and 90s, and surprisingly, they were probating their parents' estates, not their siblings. And I mean, there was one lady, she was 94, and I mean, her mother had her very young, but she was probating her mom's estate in her 90s. And I'm like, holy smokes. But she thought the world of me, but she wouldn't trust my trash out guy. She wouldn't trust my floor guy. So I paid for everything. I had it all trashed out, put all new flooring back in. And she literally drove 2.5 hours to come bring me a check the next day. And every once in a while, I'll stick my neck out and I'll actually take that risk myself. But I don't recommend you make a habit of it, because the service you're providing is so valuable. You don't need to be a free bank and take financial risk when you're already quarterbacking for them.
Okay, and last question, I see we got John in here, so this one's going to be directed at both of you. So I reached out to a gang of attorneys, since the last time we had that conversation. I went after the big guns. I didn't care. They're small business owners, just like me. We all need business. So I went at them, had pretty good results, had some meetings set up. Unfortunately, one of the ones I was going for, they're just a little bit too busy. So I built a program that parses the Ohio Bar Association's website and filters down based on attorneys that are in the state. So I've got one, and I checked her in the court database. I don't really see her name anywhere, but she seems like she would be extremely approachable. would you advise, targeting her and building that relationship, considering the fact that she doesn't really, at least as far as, the court database that I have, she hasn't really had any cases. Would you go after her, or would you just, stick to going after the big guns?
My wheels are turning. I want to talk about the program you wrote. If you walk in John Fraker's office and say, "Hey, would you like to see how your competition's doing?" and hand him a list, he's gonna say, "Yeah, come on in, sit down."
Pretty cool.
That's amazing. I really do think, John, you're the best person to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, and I've actually had this conversation with a couple of the different members. Renee and I talk about this at length, right? So some attorneys are going to be basically too busy to give you much referrals. Some of them may already have their people dialed in. I told Renee I had a case, it's like 2007, I think it was a partition action where a dad died and left the house or the parents died and left their house to their 5 kids, 20% each on the deed. And they couldn't agree on anything. And my client was in San Jose, the property's in LA, and they got all their requests for accounting and all that stuff was basically round filed. So they finally, after 2 years of getting the phone slammed on them, they went to court. And at the end of the process, which is kind of it's a huge waste of time and money because you can't stop. In other words, my client was going to prevail and get exactly what he wanted because this is what the law gives him. At the end of the process, their attorney, who literally completely botched everything on their behalf the whole way through. I enjoyed making him look bad to his clients. At the end of that process, he was like, "Oh, I agree to the settlement if we can use my realtor." And this was before I did real estate. I went back to my business partner, Leon, and he's like, "There's something going on there where that guy's getting some kind of business kickback or something. It violates the state bar." But Leon's just completely convinced, you couldn't talk him out of it, that wasn't going on in that case and many others. So when you're talking to super successful attorneys in certain spaces, you want to know what their capacity is to take on new referral sources. They may already have their people dialed in. They may already have that relationship. So being able to talk to somebody on the new end, helping them expand their business actually carries more bang for the buck. I guess it's a little bit of a longer term deal, right? If you're talking to somebody who's out of law school 2 years, who's just getting started, they may not have a lot of business. But if you're helping them, they're going to remember that along the way. You're going to be building goodwill with them. You're going to get in there and build that strong relationship from the get-go. So like with Renee, I'm like, attorneys 3 to 5 years out or 3 to 5 years in this practice is your sweet spot. Going after somebody who's been doing this 20, 25 years, they have their people.
Yeah, that's what I ran into with one of the guys. I called him, because after I had the pep talk from Coach Chad, I said, "All right, well, I don't care how much business you do. I don't care how many times I see your name. I'm going after you." So I was aggressive. Some people, they were receptive to it. Unfortunately, one of the guys I was talking to, he was actually going through probate himself because his relative had just died. He's a probate attorney himself. So I'm
the cobbler's son has no shoes, eh?
Yeah, it was something. It was definitely something. So I've got that appointment set this week, but I just didn't want to sit on my hands and wait, especially now that I've got this other attorney where seemingly she's done no work. So I'm thinking what, she'll be much more receptive to hear all the things that I've got going on and I've got to say. But I was just, I was curious to see what you thought, Chad, in terms of sticking to the big guns and going after the person that's young and hungry.
You've got an unusual, I don't know if it's unusual, you've got a very unique skill set. A lot of folks on here can't write their own programs to do this, but so this is pretty much directed at you. Something that John said kind of spurred a memory for me, like attorneys can take kickbacks as long as they're licensed real estate brokers. And it may not be legal, but I know of attorneys in California who have recruited my students, and our customers tried to recruit them by saying, "I'll give you my deals, you give me a 25% referral." So if that attorney has a bar license and also has a real estate license, don't waste your damn time. So in your program, like if you're programmatically extracting these, like if you want to focus your efforts, I'm not going to say never. You can go unseat them and say, I'll give you a 10% referral, not 25. But if you want to make your program a little bit better, make sure that you deduce the people from the attorneys from the list who also have a broker's license in the same state. Because that way you're less likely to come up against ones who are looking to trim your commission, or they already have established brokerage relationships in place and that they're getting 25% referrals. It may just save you some more time and help you cut that list down. Now, as far as methodology, The way you're looking at this is similar to the way I look at financial services. When I look for a true financial services professional, when I know that Pareto's principle is present and 80% of the industry isn't worth a shit, they're just chasing commissions and they don't care if they don't see themselves as your fiduciary, and they're not. I only look at registered investment advisors because they have a fiduciary relationship for every single client, whether it's a retirement account or a taxable account. So I narrow it down that way by saying I'm looking for a higher standard of professionalism and a true fiduciary responsibility. Then I look at that, and you can get all this data from FINRA if you haven't already, if you want to do this with financial advisors. There are amazing databases, brokerage information, individual information. Like, you can basically see their book. What I'm looking for, just like in real estate, financial services has that 3-year mark. Like, there's an 80% plus failure rate in the first 3 years. If you can get past that 3 years, you probably are pretty good at what you do. If you get past the 3-year mark and you've got over $1 million in your book, but under $10 million, and you're making enough money to survive, and you did, but you're probably hungry as hell, right? So when I go to look for a financial services professional that I trust will have a fiduciary, that will see himself as a true fiduciary with my clients, and he will go above and beyond to not just sell high commission bullshit products. Like, that's how I underwrite and look for that person. That's how I filter. So are they a registered investment advisor, and did they accomplish that in their first 3 years of business? They're still in the business. Are they between $1 and $10 million, or what? You can figure out what the number is in your market. In a higher net worth market, it might be 100 million. That's the way I look at it. And I don't look for the top tier in the beginning. I'll look for the hungriest person with the highest professional credentials in the beginning, and then I'll build from there. And just like John said, you help those people, you're going to build allegiance. Like, you'll build loyal, lasting relationships, and they'll reciprocate quickly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I shameless plug, but I built a program for James Dempsey. He's a member of our, so he's got the entire state of Georgia automated now, every single county.
Yeah, I think you and I should take a look at that. I can see a few applications for the group where we might actually build a pretty damn cool tool out of it.
Okay. Well, that was all I had. I appreciate the help. I'm going to call I'm going to call the attorney now.
Okay. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing, man. Bill, looks like you got a hand up.
Questions in the chat too. He said, I would like to hear your thoughts about following through with referral sources. How do you gain their attention after initial contact?
Basically, like what we were just talking about, find ways to provide value to their business. Hey, Bill, you have a microphone?
Yes, sir. How's that?
Yeah. So you want to know how to keep the relationship going with vendors, right? Like, how do you stay front of mind?
I've been out and I've probably talked to 20 attorneys and dozen CPAs and ancillary different types of people. I've got some basic, pretty good connections, but nothing established real well yet. So I want to be able to go back and continue to nurture that type of relationship.
So the recipe is the same regardless of which team member it is. Bring them business, bring them referrals. The ingredients are different depending on the business. Like, if it's a contractor, get him some jobs, give him some simple inspection repair work to do where he can knock out $3,000 in an afternoon to clear a home inspection, especially if it's crappy weather outside. Give him inside work when the weather's shitty outside. Give him outside work when the weather's nice outside. Like, just think about him. Like, if I was him, what kind of work would I want to get? Or what kind of referrals? If it's a CPA, find some high net worth individuals that aren't happy with their effective tax rate and have those conversations. Be like, hey, I've got an amazing CPA. He's got my effective tax rate down to 20%. What'd you pay last year? And like, be in an environment where you can find people who aren't happy. They're like, oh, I paid so much in taxes. Maybe you should sit down with my guy. He'll do a free consultation and help you understand where you could be saving. And whatever that is, whether it's an estate sale company, or it's an attorney, or it's a CPA, or a registered investment advisor, think about, what is the best referral I can give this person, and how can I put myself in a position to be the one that has the opportunity to give him that. You know, one of the examples we talk about most often is with estate planning attorneys. We find high net worth individuals who don't have a proper estate plan in place. And we encourage them to take a free hour of our advisor's time. And then we go find the advisor, or we feed the ones we've already found. And they're happy to give an hour of their time because they're likely to earn a considerable amount of revenue on that business. And if they do a good job, they're likely to get referred to other people by that person. So it's not that you're stacking up a bunch of social debt by having them spend time with your referrals. It's quite the opposite. You're building social capital. So let's just say we have 15 to 20 critical team members that would help in any given year. You don't use them all in every deal for sure. Just when you get a chance, kick some business their way and help and make it a good referral. Let's just say it's a lender and you need a guy that can, quickly help get your investors financed on residential deals. Don't send him some first-time home buyer with a 619 credit score. Like, send that to a different lender if that relationship's really important to you, because he's going to be like, "What the hell, Bill? There's no way. This guy's never making it through underwriting." But if you send him the doctor that just signed an employment contract for $300,000 a year, doesn't have a down payment, but has an 800 credit score, and they've got their employment contract, he can get that one financed. He'll portfolio that one. He'll close it quickly, and he'll make more money on it because it's a portfolio loan. That's the kind of stuff you want to give, right? So there's a million different examples, but just empathetically think about yourself in the leadership role of that company and say, what kind of business would I want? And then find ways to get them that business.
I'm sending out probably 400 letters a month right now, and follow up with texting, phone calls, voicemail drops. And in that, I'm not including probably 50 that I'm doing to, I'll call them vendors. Now, they're not all particularly in a pipeline per se, but I've spoken to them either on the phone or in person. So I think I'm doing everything you indicate I should be, but I'm not really getting a lot of traction.
What market are you in, Bill?
Northern Colorado.
You're in Laramie, Weld, up that way.
Yes, sir.
Hang on. I coached a guy there and I thought we were getting skunked. And I told him to stop buying leads and stop sending mail, but continue making phone calls. We were at the 4-month mark. He continued for 2 more months and he nailed 6 listings in 1 week at the 6-month mark. And from there, he's held pace. Like, he's built a nice business out of there. He was a Mike Ferry guy, so he tracked every single metric. So he was a great test case for me to try to crack the code in Colorado. You're in one of the most challenging states because of the nature of how the data is recorded. You're getting it late. However, the ones that need your help will eventually, they'll respond to your message. The unfortunate part is your cash conversion cycle is much higher than other places in the country because they've been hammered by so many investors. So I've coached in Colorado Springs and Denver and up in your area. All 3 were incredibly difficult to break into, but once we broke in, we kept momentum. And Dave Gwynn, I don't think is here today. I don't see, there's a face that pops up here very often, almost every week. You'll see a guy named Dave Gwynn. He's down in Denver. And we fought this fight probably 4 years ago. I think Dave started, maybe 5. And you might network with Dave. And there was somebody in our group and Probate Mastery alumni looking for other members from Colorado this week. And I tagged Dave, and Holly Gold was also somebody in the Denver metro area. But I would say if you're following everything that we've taught and you feel like you're doing that to the best of your ability, just be patient. If the direct mail is putting budget constraints on you, pull back on the direct mail first. Keep the phone calls rolling. That seems to be the recipe in Colorado. The other things, there's in the Probate Mastery course, I don't remember which module, it's in session 2. I gave you all of the letters that I've proven out over the years.
Yeah.
One of those letters is called the Probate Social Enterprise Letter. Another is called a Home Value Letter. Both of those were written for the Colorado Springs market. I wrote them for a very aggressive broker who ran a call center, and she just wasn't getting traction. We shifted the letters from being very direct to being rather indirect, and we got a different result. So you might check out those 2 letters. They were written for Colorado. They've proven out over and over in really difficult markets. The house value letter is more like a farming letter, playing on the strength of the market. The social enterprise letter is kind of an introduction to the concept of your business, not necessarily saying, hey, here's what I can do for you. And on the back, it's a 2-page. You flip it over and it gives them all of their options for the real estate, starting with do nothing, put your head in the sand and lose money hand over fist. So it's a little bit tongue in cheek. You might want to edit it. It's written from my voice, but both of those work very well. Probate social enterprise.
Okay.
It's intentionally a strange name. Like most people, social enterprise doesn't bring up anything very familiar for most people. That's what I want. That's my interruptive piece. I want to interrupt, educate, engage, ask, right? So they're like, oh, what is this? Another damn realtor? What do you mean a social enterprise? What is that? Like a nonprofit? And in their mind, that's leading them deeper into my copywriting.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Alex Shen, you're up. How can we help you?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. So I took the mastery course, awesome course. Anyone who hasn't taken the course, if they're seeing this, should definitely take the course. I got 2 listings in a trust sale where the 2 brothers they can't see eye to eye on anything. It got so bad to the point that each side has their own attorneys and it's open litigation. There's quite a bit of equity in the 2 properties, but we just finally, maybe about a year of working this, got it to a point where now both brothers have agreed for the sale of the property, one of them at least. And so I took a look at one of them this past weekend. Property's in pretty decent condition. The only issue is that there's a lot of personal property still in like every single room. So I just wanted to run it by you. What would be kind of the best way approach to this? Just because there's so much tension. I don't want to, me, the real estate guy, adding more steps to this already complicated process when there's already a fresh wound. And also the 2 brothers won't really talk with each other. There's distrust going on both sides. How do we divide up like who keeps this and who keeps that? And should we just do a full-blown estate sale?
Who's the trustee, Alex?
Say this again?
Who is the trustee?
So there's 2 trustees, 2 co-trustees is the 2 brothers, and there's also 4 other beneficiaries.
So this is where the problem comes in. You've got 2 people trying to do one job and they don't agree. And so here's what I would suggest, not understanding all the legality of it or the whole history of it. I wouldn't sell any personal property. I would go to whomever the referee in this case is. It's not clear to me from what I know about it. Whoever that decision maker is, I would say, listen, I've located a storage facility. I've gotten a quote from a moving company. We are going to stage this property until you guys have resolved this. And at that time, we can arrange an estate sale. But I would not recommend fanning the flames. If you sell an heirloom that you weren't supposed to, the whole damn thing could blow up in your face. It could make the situation worse. So what I would recommend is find a way to hire people to clean out the house, move it into a storage facility, and invoice the estate. And there should, if it's this type of situation, I'm assuming there's enough assets there that the trustee can afford a couple $1,000s to keep this moving forward.
The referee, would that be the 2 attorneys on both sides?
I don't know at this point. It may be a judge at this point. John, who do you think is calling the shots?
Well, I mean, that's, yeah. Number one, is there an active probate case, or is this a trust administration case?
It's not an active.
It's not an active probate. Okay. Yeah, then I would.
One brother litigate to get the other co-trustee removed.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately it's the attorney for the trustee or whoever that is, or the 2 attorneys, or however they see fit. I agree with what Chad said. That's what I would do. Move the property off site, put it in a storage unit. It's not your business or your problem, right? I mean, what Chad said is we had a case, this is going back 10 plus years. Leon, my business partner, had a case in Alameda County, and they couldn't, it's the same exact situation that the 2 trustees were just fighting each other. Finally, the judge got really angry and was like, I'm putting somebody else in there, a professional fiduciary or some court appointed person. And what was hilarious is that guy went in there, appointed by the judge, not by us. Can't stress that enough. Went in there, threw everything in the garbage. One of the things I made in the trash was a signed letter to the decedent from Jackie Robinson.
Can I make a suggestion?
In his handwriting. And I was like, well, can't stress this enough. I did not appoint this person, but if you did something in that nature, obviously you're inviting more, let the people who are lightning rods continue to be the lightning rods. That's why you have attorneys on this case, right? But it should be not controversial to scrape out. I mean, if they've agreed to sell it and they're ready to move forward, put it in a storage unit, get one of the or they call them the pod storage unit, where they come to the house and they do it for you, and then just build the estate, and that's it. There's no reason for you at all to get involved with an estate sale. I mean, you can refer them to people, but again, in this kind of lightning situation, let the lightning rod do it. Don't stand out in the rain with an umbrella. You're going to get nailed. So let the attorneys do their job. That's your cover. Do nothing that they don't authorize, and just say, look, it's got to go somewhere. Can't leave it here. And if you guys have agreed to the sale, then it shouldn't be that hard to get a stager in here. But
And on top of that, it should probably be all the personal property gets moved to the storage unit, as opposed to letting one brother come in, take what he owns, other brother coming on the back, right? Yeah, makes sense. And then they handle it on their own, because I shouldn't be the one involved in between.
Yeah, what I tell all my clients is, if all the beneficiaries agree, they can do whatever they want when it comes to nearly anything in trust administration, especially personal property, right? Estate sale, you go first, you go second, you go third. Like, if everyone's in agreement, they can do whatever they want. In a situation like this, where they can't agree on the color of the sky, then you need to step back, and that just simply isn't your problem. You're going to have to let the attorneys run that, and you just need to stay back, because there's nothing good that comes from that one for you.
All right. And the storage facility and moving company have that invoice to the estate.
Yeah, just obviously you're going to need the authorization from the trustees if that's just a creditor claim or whatever. But yeah, invoice the estate, get that set up in the estate's name, send that to the attorneys, have them sign off on it or authorize it. But that's, like I said, get the property out of there so you can do your job, but don't, in this type of case, don't start doing a whole bunch of other people's jobs.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, if I were you, I would find the facility that you want to put it in. I would probably say climate controlled is a safe bet, just because you don't really know everything that's there. So find the storage facility you'd like to use, find the labor that you would like to use, and you email the two trustees, attorneys, not the trustees, their counsel. And like, kind of like a divorce deal. This is between the professional and the attorneys. And as long as you have their authorization to do this, don't get the two fight at the lightning rods, as John put it. Leave them the hell out of the conversation and move swiftly. So by the time they know the house is empty, it's all safely in storage, and the key is at the attorney's office, or wherever that ends up. But I would move swiftly to keep them, not let them slip back into the quicksand. Take a leadership role here, unless the attorneys tell you to slow down. Move forward with your job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounded like Roger, but I don't see you.
Yeah, well, something's going on with my camera on my computer right now, so you don't get to see my lovely face. I had a similar situation in an estate that I was working in probate, and I went to the attorney. It was one attorney and two heirs that were involved. And both of them wanted the car. One of them wanted it, the other one didn't. They wanted to go in, and I used the magic words to the attorney's equitable distribution. And I talked to my estate seller, and I said, it's all going to go through you. It doesn't make me the bad guy, but you can get what you want at the auction. Each one of you make an offer on the property that you want. If one of them wants the rocking chair, and both of them want the car, both of them want the boat, whatever it is, they make an offer at the auction, and they can then get it a fair understanding of what they want. And what happens with it is reduces their price, their offer price at the auction. It reduces the amount of equity that they receive in the sale of the house, because it goes into the estate, and then the money is divided among the estate, and it kind of takes the tension out of, I want this and you want that also. I want that bedroom suit or whatever. And it just basically puts it into, how bad do you want it? And it benefits both of them, because all that money goes into the estate, or it reduces their take out of the estate, one way or the other. But it has to be done in conjunction with the attorney or attorneys to provide an equitable, quote unquote, distribution between the heirs, instead of a sibling rivalry over, I want that gun and you don't want that. You can't have that gun. It's just a matter of let them bid on it at the auction, or put in, and the winner puts the reserve at the auction. So if it's guns, cars, boats, anything like that, Just tell them, okay, your estate seller's right here. He's going to take your bids before the winning bid for reduction of your estate award is going to be taken out of that. And you're setting a reserve on the actual auction date when it comes in. If it goes over that, they're going to let it go. It'll go to the highest bid. So it takes a lot of tension out of jerking everything out, putting it into, and a lot of expense for the estate to put it into a moving company into a storage facility. Just let them battle it out on that. But you have to get that direction from the attorneys and the estate seller. And the estate seller gets commission off of that sale of that item. And he says, oh, hell yeah. It's a $5,000 boat that's in there. He's still going to get his 20% commission off the $5,000 boat that's sold because it's done through the estate sale. It's a lot easier. It was a lot easier to settle it that way. And that was at the suggestion of my estate seller to do it that way. Because he gets commission. He gets commission out.
Right. Yeah, it takes the emotion out of the process, puts it into dollars. If how bad do you want it, you make the offer. If you want it, it gets taken out of the proceeds. Completely makes sense. So
It's a
couple things.
But it stays in the estate, stays put, and they have an offer, and that offer is set as a reserve for that item. So if somebody comes to the auction and says, I'll pay $25,000 for that boat, and their highest bid from the family is $20,000, they've just enriched themselves by $5,000 in the estate.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Roger. So, Alex, what I would say is anytime you provide options, you tend to get trust faster, right? Or people take you more seriously. So if you approach those attorneys, if you feel like it fits the situation and doesn't risk your commission, to offer that as an option, like just know they might take that as an option. It may delay you getting the home on the market. It's if it doesn't fit the situation, it's a great tactic to have for the future. Like option A is what Roger just proposed. Option B would be getting everything into storage. Option C would be you guys get the hell along like your mom and dad wanted you to begin with. But it's another great arrow to have in your quiver. And guys, I hate to cut us off at the peak of such a good conversation, but I do have a hard stop at 1 that I'm late for. So as always, thank you so much for an entertaining, great conversation. Hopefully you all got something actionable from this today. Thanks for everyone who contributed. John, love having you here, man. Thanks for all your help and clarifying. Thanks for letting us borrow your law degree again. You do so much pro bono. But guys, listen, thanks for being part of this. We'll see you next week.
thank you guys.
Bye, guys.